Today, we're unpacking a really critical moment in national security. It's a story about what happens when the digital guardians of a nation are pretty much forced to just power down.
I want you to imagine this for a second. You have these frontline soldiers in a digital war, the absolute experts who hunt hackers and patch our most critical vulnerabilities, and then suddenly, they're just told to go home. And this isn't some hypothetical scenario. No, this is exactly what went down in February of 2026.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, you first need to meet the main character in this whole saga, an agency called CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
So think of CISA as America's digital bodyguard. Seriously, their entire job is to protect the vital systems that we all rely on every single day. We're talking the power grid, banking, communications, transportation, the whole shebang. They're the ones coordinating the national effort to keep all that stuff safe.
Now, what's so wild about this slide is the timing. This quote is from the agency's director, Madhu Makala, testifying before Congress. He's making it crystal clear, saying, look, we don't just sit around and wait for the next attack. We are leading the fight. Basically, they hunt the hunters. They don't just clean up the mess. And the crazy part? He said this just 3 days before everything changed.
And this whole thing didn't just come out of nowhere. The agency's leadership saw it coming a mile away. The director straight up warned lawmakers that if the funding stopped, the very experts leading the fight would be sent home. He called it, and I quote, an unprecedented strain on our national defenses. They knew.
And then it happened. The funding lapsed, which led to a partial government shutdown, and it hit the Department of Homeland Security, CISA's parent organization, especially hard. This timeline really gives you a clear picture of just how fast that week went down. You've got the warning on the 11th, then, bam, the shutdown starts on the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, I guess. By the 17th, the full scale of the impact was really becoming public. But I want you to notice that last date, February 20th. We're going to circle back to that because it's super important.
And just to help you grasp the scale here, look at this number. 260,000. That's how many people at the Department of Homeland Security had their mission support affected. We're talking over 250,000 people, the ones responsible for everything from border security to disaster response, whose ability to do their jobs was suddenly compromised.
Yeah, and the official statement from DHS, well, it didn't mince words. They came right out and called it reckless partisan games and warned that it was directly undermining their ability to protect the country. Pretty strong stuff.
But the impact wasn't just on paper, you know? It created a really dangerous ripple effect that spread across the entire national security system.
For instance, the Coast Guard. All of a sudden, vendors weren't getting paid. That could mean military families actually losing power and water. And on top of that, it meant fewer patrols and fewer flights, which created real gaps in maritime security.
Then you've got FEMA, the agency that responds to hurricanes and floods. Their existing disaster relief funds were at risk of running dry. And maybe even worse, payments to local firefighters, police, and emergency managers all across the country were just frozen.
And you know, even the Secret Service wasn't immune to this. It's actually pretty simple. When you don't pay your IT support contracts, you open yourself up to system vulnerabilities. Their own documents warn this was increasing the risk of data breaches.
And this slide really nails the change inside CISA. See, it wasn't just about sending people home, it was about fundamentally changing how they operated. All the proactive work, the strategic planning, the training, the assessments to find weaknesses before the bad guys do, all of it just stopped, dead in its tracks. They had to abandon their mission of preventing attacks and were left only able to respond to them.
Which brings us to the central tension of this entire story. While America's cyber shield was being lowered, the threats on the other side, well, they didn't take a day off, not for a second. This is the number that just defines the whole crisis, 38%. That's it. That's the operational capacity CISA was left with. Just think about that. It means nearly 2/3 of the nation's top cybersecurity experts were furloughed, forced to just sit at home while the country was exposed. And here's that powerful quote from CISA's director again. It's such a simple but chilling statement of fact. The hackers in China, Russia, and elsewhere, you can bet their work continued, and they were probably watching this situation very, very closely.
And look, this threat wasn't theoretical. At this exact time, intelligence reports showed active campaigns from Chinese state-sponsored groups targeting U.S. telecoms. Ransomware was running absolutely rampant. And crucially, hackers were using zero-day vulnerabilities. And those are the really nasty ones, the brand new, unpatched security flaws that no one has a defense for yet. to break into systems.
So to understand this next slide, you need to know about the KEV catalog. Just think of it like CISA's most wanted list, but for software bugs. If a vulnerability makes it onto this list, it means CISA knows for a fact that hackers are out there using it to break into networks right now.
And this is where it gets incredible. Remember that timeline, February 20th? 6 days into the shutdown, that skeleton crew, that 38% of the workforce, was still finding new threats. They issued an alert, adding 2 brand new vulnerabilities to the KEV catalog. This is absolute proof that while CISA was handicapped, our adversaries were still hard at work, finding new ways in.
So what does it mean to guard an entire nation's digital infrastructure with less than half of your team?
Well, one security journalist put it perfectly with this metaphor. They said, the lights will remain on in CISA during the shutdown, but with fewer operational bulbs. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? The lights were technically on, but the agency was operating in the dim, unable to see the whole picture or prepare for what was coming next.
Here's the crucial point. The shutdown flipped CISA's entire mission on its head. They went from being fire marshals, preventing fires before they even start, to being firefighters, just running from blaze to blaze. And every single day that proactive work was halted, the nation accumulated what's called a security debt, a growing backlog of risks that would have to be paid down later, possibly after an attack had already succeeded.
And that leaves us with this final, lingering question. This wasn't just about delayed paychecks or closed offices. This was about voluntarily weakening our defenses in a war that never stops. So, in a world of persistent cyber conflict, what is the real price we pay when our own politics become our biggest vulnerability?